doesn't allow me to sit comfortably. But great, great to be in Goa. I mean, who doesn't like to be in Goa? And thank you, Archana, for agreeing to be a part of this panel. I'll just take 2 minutes to set the context, right? And why we are talking about media outcomes and quality of media are interrelated. Um, so we've been talking about omni-channel for last couple of days, right? And we know that it's a reality now. And as Ankit mentioned yesterday, right, omni-channel presence brings a lot of media options, which again becomes a little riskier for brands to kind of be exposed towards so many media options, right, in front of so much fragmentation and audiences, right? With that, we have seen, right, almost 10% of the brand exposures can be on a brand unsafe environment, right? 50% of your ads are not even seen, right, which is a massive challenge. Then fraud, of course, we're talking, right? And then there are, 100 players who are coming and giving away numbers, right? Somebody's talking, 20% fraud, somebody's talking 2% fraud, somebody's saying viewability doesn't matter, somebody's saying pre-bid doesn't matter, right? So it's a lot of confusion out there again, right? Everybody feels that their solution is the best to tackle the media quality, right? Now, with so much of fragmentation, so much of perhaps misinformation or over-information, right? Uh, from a brand's perspective, it becomes a little difficult to kind of slice and dice through data and arrive at a decision to make, right? And that's where we have Archana here who have been through this journey. And Archana, you have been pretty vocal about this in terms of the importance of media quality in general in the digital space as well as the traditional media and how marketers needs to adopt it, right? So my first question is, can you take us through the journey that you've been about deploying such technology, right? And how it has been in terms of your experience?
Hello. Yeah. Yeah. So third-party verification was always on the back of the mind, but till you get a wake-up call, I don't think quite a few of us would get into it. So that wake-up call happened when when there was an audit which got conducted, and we realized a lot of our advertising brand ads were on some unsafe content, right? I mean, that was just one part. And that's where our journey started actually, because that was one of the action points that we need to now get in, start measuring or figuring out a solution of saying that how do we avoid being on brand unsafe. So we said if we are anyway getting into this, let's look at all the three tenets of brand safety, ad fraud and viewability, because all of them go hand in hand. And that's where our journey began. So the first step we did was, while we already had on our DV360, which is our serving platform, we had already, there are brand safety tiers already existing. There are viewability parameters which are existing. But even after moving to a slightly more brand safe pieces on YouTube, don't think we were completely happy with it. And from a viewability standpoint, we realized that they're following the MRC guidelines, which are not very stringent. And 50% view for 1 second is really nothing for a brand, right? And we wanted to get into a slightly more stricter guidelines, and we wanted to move to the Group M guidelines, at least they were slightly more stricter. So I think all of this actually resulted in us then getting into a full-fledged landscape assessment of what were the tools available, and we did meetings with everybody. We understood, and then we chose a partner saying that okay, let's go ahead and trust, transparency, technological innovations are really important for us, right? And the way this landscape has exploded, especially during COVID, it's becoming more and more imperative to be on to have this third-party verification, especially to ensure that your brand is in safe on safe content um, is viewable, and obviously you're not paying for bots. Yeah.
Amazing. I like that point that you made when you really went through that trouble of being in a brand safe environment. And I remember I was talking to another global brand, and they also had similar experience. But with social media now at everybody's disposal, right? What happened with them was somebody took a screenshot of that placement, put it on Twitter, and tagged the global MD, right? Then the whole thing broke off, right?
Actually, you know, brands like ours, which are in service industry, this is a big challenge, right? So that's why it becomes more imperative to be on content which is brand safe, right? Because you're right, everybody has a mobile phone. Anybody can just take a screenshot and just tag, and we get a lot of stuff on Twitter and all our social media handles, not only about, you just put up some piece of copy and somebody has a point of view on it.
Yeah.
So, so it's actually more challenging for service brands.
Yeah. And of course, there are influencers who are just waiting for the opportunity to tap it, right? Now, with that, so you mentioned about brand safety, fraud, viewability is something that is of importance to you. But are you looking at all three aspects holistically, or is there any preferred dimension is more important for you?
See, yeah, all of them are equally important, right? Because if your brand is not viewable, that means the consumer doesn't get the message. If it's unsafe content, then the consumer has a negative view, could potentially have a negative view about you. And obviously, if there's ad fraud happening, that means you're paying for something which anyway the consumer is not seeing. So obviously, all three are important, but I think especially from a brand safety standpoint, I think every brand has to decide what their safety tiers are, right? There are those 13 core categories, and in those core categories, you can do a high, medium, low, right? And some brands will have a much higher tolerance to being visible on certain things, while some brands may not be that tolerant, right? And again, we realized, then the first time we started doing and deciding whether for any of the categories we were a high or we wanted to be a high, medium, low, we struggled. So, and it's still a journey because we keep looking at the videos, the kind of content we are or what gets blocked. We go back and check the details, right, to understand that. And then we decide, okay, whether we need to increase the tiering or reduce the tiering, because while you want scale, you don't want the scale at the cost of brand safety or ad fraud or whatever, right? So for us, all three are important, but you try to find a balanced mix between it. Like we've seen viewability also. You rarely get 100% viewability, right? So you have to keep building your own internal standards for your brand in terms of what the viewable is by platform, because every platform differs. And that's been a struggle. Like we know one of the things, so one of the platforms, Google gave us, they were following the Google MRC guidelines, and we were like, that's not good enough for us, and we want to go to which was, their viewable guidelines were half of what the Group M guidelines were, right? And we were like, we'll not get into a deal until you give us at least the Group M guidelines, right? So we started putting benchmarks for things when we when we go and talk to platforms, because if we are investing in third party, it's not just for great knowledge, oh, I've got this information, but how do we use this knowledge and action it to improve the effectiveness of our plans? Because that's what I'm looking at, effectiveness.
Amazing. I think this perhaps will help a lot of advertisers who are leveraging video, for the communication, right? Because typically, if you're running a video and if you're only looking at reach and frequency, for that matter, may not be a right metric to look at, because if you don't have an opportunity to show the ad in first place, then the reach and frequency perhaps is of no use to you, right? So it trickles from there.
It's like, we're doing 0 TVR spots. Should we do 0 TVR spots? No, we will try to make the TV plan more efficient. It's the same way from a digital standpoint.
Absolutely. And just to, perhaps take a step back about the three parameters of quality. How much of quality versus quantity debate is always there, right? Does quality become a topmost priority for you when you look at your media strategy, or it has to be a combination between quality and quantity?
I mean, in my mind, there's no debate. It has to be quality. But obviously, it's a journey, right? I can't say quality because at the end of it, we also want scale, the plan to scale. You know, you want to get the reach, right? So I think it's a journey. I mentioned about the zero TVR spots, right? Even on television, you can't not live with zero TVRs. Right? You will get some spots on programs which are zero TVRs. Similarly, you will on digital also. But obviously, the objective is to constantly improve quality. I mean, today, consumers are moving from digital adolescence to digital adulthood, right? They understand what is noise and they understand what is authentic communication, right? If you want to reach these kind of consumers, then it has to be quality based. It cannot be that I'll just go and talk to any, because quantity will also could potentially be a lot of ad fraud, for example, or brand unsafe, for example, or brand unsuitable, for example.
Excellent point, yeah. And to be clear, right, ad fraud and viewability are totally different, right? If there is any confusion, it's not, right? Viewability is viewability, fraud is fraud at its table, right? And it becomes critical for brands who are advertising on video to measure two things at an overall level as well as individually, so that you can start optimizing your media outputs and deliveries accordingly. Now with that, now it's been a perhaps while that you have experienced this technology. Are there any interesting learnings that you have taken out of it? Any actionable data points that you've gotten out of it? Anything that you want to share with us?
So, we got some three, four which really come to my mind because they were quite surprising for us also. I think most platforms, they are unable to differentiate between they don't have the contextual intelligence, so they're unable to differentiate. For example, if I say violence is an issue, between a Rohit Shetty movie trailer and maybe a Ukraine war, for example. So for them, or a South Indian movie which has a lot of action, right? So they will typically end up blocking everything, thinking this is all violence, for example. So that's the point, like, it's very important to go back and see what is getting blocked, because we found that a lot of our stuff was getting blocked, which was actually okay because that was news, or those were trailers, for example, or something which was okay for our brand to be present on. So that was one. The second one, which I remember very clearly, was this whole piece was where we had only one creative, which was a English creative. And I remember that was, I think, one of our first studies we had done. And a lot of stuff was getting blocked on, and when we said there was like very high block, and we like, oh, this is wow, look, we've done such a great job. When we deep dived, we realized that what was getting blocked was all the spots on regional channels. Now, we didn't realize at that time that because we had only one created, we were okay putting the serving those ads to regional consumers or on the regional platforms, but the system. So we had to go and make those changes. Yeah. The other one was this whole piece was we were like very happy with some of our video completion rates, and we were really getting 90% plus completion rates, and we were like, this is awesome and all. Till we went and checked the AVOC rates, which is audiovisual on completion. And we realized that while there were very high completion, video completion, but they were on mute. And a lot of Airtel advertising has a lot of drama, dialogues, music, and very little supers or anything. So one of the things we went back and changed for some of these platforms, that if we want to serve ads on those platforms, we need to have a lot more supers, right? So that even if they're watching it in mute mode, because you have to find a solution to the way consumer watches, not that you can't force the consumer to switch on or to unmute the video. So we started putting supers. So at least hopefully if they're watching the video, they'll be reading what the ad is about. Okay. And the last most surprising one, which was, we always believe, like I always used to believe that, oh, if my ad is going to be viewable if it's on big sizes, right? Like really large sizes and from a display standpoint. And what we learned was actually some of the smaller sizes were far more, had better viewability than the large sizes. And maybe because it's about the loading time or whatever, I'm not the tech person behind, so I don't understand everything. But that was like a big shocker. So I think, these are things which we've learned, and obviously we constantly keep learning.
Very interesting. I think when it comes to size, perhaps the placement of that ad also matters, right? It can be above the fold, top.
Because I don't do performance, right? I'm doing brand digital. So your brand digital is always about putting it in large size ads. The placements become important, right? Because you buy directly with the platform. You do lesser of affiliates and stuff because you're looking at because you're trying to drive reach. So I always believe that, and I remember checking with my teams also. Is the placement proper? Is the ad size right? I don't want those really tiny ads which, on the mobile are not even viewable. So, I was always in the opinion that our viewability is not an issue. But obviously that was not true.
Great. So it's not just the data, but you have really used that data and actioned it, which is amazing.
Yeah, but as I said, it's the data is about how do I build more effectiveness, because that will give me a better ROI.
Yep. So now with all of this, what's future looking like for Airtel, right? What are the new technologies and opportunities you're looking at?
So for us, the future is, we have already started a journey on connected TVs. So how do we do unified advertising on connected TVs, for example, because that's going to scale for us. Cookieless future is the next big piece that we're looking at. We're looking at measurement, obviously, because measurement is again very important. And obviously, how do we get immersive experiences with Web 3.0? We've done something on the metaverse. We've just started our journey there. I think we have a long way to go. So I think these 3-4 things, and I'm sure there are lots more, but like top 3-4 things.
Yeah. I think boils down to measurement, right? With CTV being there or any other new thing, measurement will eventually help you further optimize and crystallize your spends. Yeah. Finally, we're just a minute away. One piece of advice, or in general, what's your advice for the marketers in the room?
I think I'm not sure if I'm equipped to give advice, but I would say that do start on the journey of third-party verification. And as an industry, it's very important because if you start on the journey now, it takes time to settle down on this journey, one. Second, as an industry or as advertisers, it's important that we create industry standards for all of these matrices and have a point of view, because today we're still paying for all of this. How do we create industry benchmarks and create a lot of noise around this? I think it's very, very important.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Archana, for sharing all these insights and your journey. And I'm sure it would have added a lot of value to the audiences here. Thank you so much for being patient and listening to us. And do reach out to us for any queries that you have. We have like a minute. Any questions?
Sure, we still have a minute left. So in case any questions, please do raise your hands and we'll have the mic passed on to you. Any questions, ladies and gentlemen?
That's embarrassing.
All right. So then on that note, we're going to request them to connect with you offline instead. Thank you so much,
you.
Nachiket. Thank you a lot, Archana. And if I could request you to come together for a group photograph.